The last type of loop that you are going to learn how to use in this JavaScript course is called a for loop. A for loop is similar to a while and do while loop. The main difference is that a for loop can be used to run a loop a given number of times. In order to show you the difference between the two, let's take a look at a while loop and a for loop. You can see that the for loop is a lot more smaller and compact. This is why it is a very popular type of loop. Keep in mind, for loops are a little bit more complicated, so let's go over it bit by bit. First, we start off with the for keyword in a pair of parentheses. The first thing we do is declare the variable. This first declaration is only run once in a for loop. Next, we have the condition for the loop itself. The very last component would change the counter and add +1 to it every time the loop is ran. Lastly, we have our code that gets run in the loop. Essentially, these two loops are the same, just the syntax for them is different, and a for loop is a lot faster to create. For loops are very common in JavaScript. For loops may seem a little bit complicated to understand right now, but once you start working with them, you'll be creating them with no problems whatsoever. Now let's create an example of a for loop. Let's generate some numbers on the screen. So we're going to start by creating our for loop. We're then going to add our counter variable and make it 0. Next up, we add the condition for our loop, and we're going to add a pretty big number here. And lastly, we're going to add our part that adds +1 to the counter every time the loop is ran. What we're going to do here is we're going to make a document.write command and just write out whatever counter means to the page. So our counter starts off as 0. The script will then print that number to the screen. The next time the loop is run, counter will be 1, and then the script will print that number to the screen. The main thing here is just getting used to the syntax for our new for loop. You can see that this code is a lot smaller than how we'd normally write a loop or other coding in JavaScript. This is why for loops are very common. They require less typing and are easier and faster to write. So now that our script is done, let's save it and give it a go. We can see here that our loop is running perfectly fine. Now that you know how to create 3 different types of loops, you're going to learn how to break out of a loop. Now we talked briefly about the break keyword in a previous lesson, but we're going to focus more on breaking out of loops since having infinite loops are always a bad thing in JavaScript. Stick with me for your next lesson on loops.